Welcome back to the show, everybody. We have made our way over to the kitchen. We have Tyler Dyck joining us, who is the CEO and head of operations for Okanagan Spirits Craft Distillery. And we're so excited that you could make the trip back to Kamloops for us, Tyler, and have you back. It's been a while, so thank you.
Yeah, well, it's always good to come back, and we like to bring refreshments when I do come.
Yeah, I love that. And on a Friday, I mean, thank you for that.
It is perfect.
It's like you time it perfectly.
Yeah, this is if we weren't here, we would be at the distillery doing the exact same thing.
Perfect. So, okay, yeah. Well, why not do it here for us on TV? And thank you so much. So, last time you were on, I think this was actually quite a while ago now. We were chatting about sort of the real history, I guess you could say, of Canadian distilling, and just kind of diving deep into where it began and where it is now. Mm-hmm. But today we wanted to chat a little bit more about the whiskey that you have, and we have a couple segments that we're going to do here. So we're going to break things up a little bit, but let's talk a little bit first of all about the one that you want to feature here, which is the Laird of Fintry.
Yeah, it's a great starting point because the Laird of Fintry is where single malt whiskey started in Canada. Mm-hmm. So it is, being Western Canada's original farm to flask distillery, that gives us an advantage of being the oldest. But really, when it comes to authentic and terroir specific whiskeys, this was the first single malt whiskey that was made 100% local.
Wow.
And it is the only whiskey in North America to 3 times be named World Spirits Awards Whiskey of the Year at the World Spirits Awards.
The only one.
The only one. And it's the reason why Canadian distilling is on the map. So back when it first won, it was the first time that anything in North America any whiskey in North America had won at the World Spirits Awards. Wow. So it was a big sort of, there was tons of celebration. It was a big head turner. And it really comes down to the fact that we have amazing growing conditions here. But as we were talking about before we got started here, whiskey's not just about what's in the bottle.
No.
Whiskey's about the stories behind it.
There's a story to every whiskey.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is firmly rooted in Okanagan history.
Okay, well, tell us about it. What is the history?
So the Laird of Fintry, so the bottle of the Laird of Fintry is a recreated label from an original label that was made for a gentleman, and his sort of name was the Laird of Fintry. It was actually Captain Dunwaters. Okay. And he had Fintry Estate up between Vernon and Kelowna, so very well-known historical property. Mm-hmm. He had his own private whiskey made for him in Scotland, under his own name, the Laird of Fintry, and it's actually under the same label as this. Of course, it didn't say Okanagan Spirits at the time. This is back in the early 1900s. He had it shipped across on steamship, brought all across Canada on the rail, and then paddle wheeled down, and he had the only private paddle wheel dock on Okanagan Lake.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
This was someone that had come from Scottish gentry, super, super rich, but really down to earth. Wow. And there's stories around when his house burnt down, he raced back to look at what he'd lost on this, and people recall him pulling beams and timbers and all this, and what he was actually searching for was the hidden trap door to get his whiskey. And apparently he went down through the ashes and smoke, pulled out, and came up with a bottle of the Laird of Fintry.
Well, there you go. Okay, so then what makes it so special? Should we taste while we're chatting?
I think we should probably, it'd be a shame not to on here. So what makes it so special? First, it's born in Okanagan field, so it's our grain grown for us specifically in our fields. Yeah. It's 100% local to start with. But after we produce it, it spends its first 5 years in our custom white oak casks before being transferred to Quailsgate Winery fortified Foch. So think a port-style wine. So it goes into their barrels for the last half year of its life. Yeah. And when you smell it, you're going to notice jammy, sort of fruity notes on it.
Yeah, definitely
so you
fruity.
add a layer of complexity that wouldn't be there if it was just the whiskey itself. So the best whiskeys in the world are often a whiskey that goes from one cask to a second finishing cask.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So in this, if you remember from last time with nosing, you're going to nose side to side. And then you're going to take a tiny little sip just to prep the palate. and let it wash over your tongue, and you're going to get those caramels and vanillas.
Oh my gosh, that's so smooth
from the
too.
barrel. Yeah, it's going to be really silky smooth on it.
I definitely get caramel.
Yeah, and then on the finish
is
that sort of jammy, plummy, almost like a sticky plum pudding on there. So I'm going to think Christmas
dessert.
time on that. It is a kind of a dessert whiskey. So sipping by the fire style whiskey on that.
Oh, it's good. Yeah. So of course it's popular. I know that the demand is really high for this. So you have a little bit of a lottery going on.
Yeah, it's kind of a cheeky thing we do. So when we first started making it, there was way more people, and a lot of them were local, that were saying, you better hold on to a bottle for me. And in the years went on before we could release, we realized that we don't have enough bottles. So we decided to start the Laird of Fintry lottery. So every year, people enter into the lottery for their chance to be able to buy a bottle of this.
Okay.
Of course, after it was named World Whiskey of the Year, and then when
the demand went even higher.
And then it got named again in 2017, and then again in 2020, the demand skyrocketed, so that now we're over 30,000, like as of today, we're over about 32,000 names in the lottery.
Oh my goodness,
for this year's lottery, for only 5,000 bottles.
Oh, wow.
That gives them a chance.
It's a real lottery.
It is a real lottery, but it gives them a chance at whiskey glory, Canadian whiskey glory, something that they can be proud of. And for our family, it's a really cool thing too, because it also allows us to give away. So our family gives 50 bottles to different charities that we support.
Right.
And those bottles, because no one can buy this on the market, those go regularly between $2,000 and $5,000.
Holy.
So it's great for the charity,
Yeah.
but it also feeds back into the lore of the whiskey.
Right. Oh my goodness.
So as with
So
any
you have to get in quick though, because it's only a few more days. Is that right?
Yeah, it's Monday. The lottery closes on Monday for
Okay.
this year. So if you want to get in, you really want to enter now.
Okay.
And there's no cost to enter. You just enter, and it gives you a chance to purchase a bottle.
Quickly, Tyler, what has all of these awards for Laird of Fintry done for Okanagan Spirits? I mean, I can imagine it's just an incredible opportunity for you guys too.
It's amazing, and for our family, it's been amazing to be the first distillery out there, but then to be able to have stand on the shoulders of giants around the world that have helped us to get to this point is fantastic. As the head of the Canadian Craft Distillers Association, it also is just amazing to see how this authentic, going back to doing things properly and doing them well is catching on.
And I feel like that's what we talked about last time you were on too, just the fact that where everything began, where distilling began, where it is now, there is that real interest to go back to the authenticity of it all, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It went from authentic prohibition hit, it went to just commercial madness of how do we make it cheap, and now it's going back to authentic.
Love that. Okay, well this is very authentic, everybody. There's more information on the screen for Okanagan Spirits, but we're not done with Tyler. We're coming right back, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. We are here with Tyler Dyck from Okanagan Spirits and Craft Distillery. So excited to have you in studio, Tyler. I feel like it's just story time with you. Like there's just so much history to distilling, and you were just kind of talking a little bit about the Laird of Fintry and the history of that, and where the popularity of it. It is a very smooth whiskey. It's kind of fruity and kind of dessert-like in some ways. But quickly, we didn't taste this in the other segment. This is the port, right?
This is the port that we work with Quailsgate Winery, and they have a fortified wine. But to make fortified wine, you need a distillery to distill some of your wine to bring it up to a high percentage, and then it barrel ages for a chunk more time. The agreement we have with them is they give us back the barrels from that fortified wine, and the Laird of Fintry goes into it.
Okay.
And when you taste that, this is like if you're in Portugal, or if you're in a region in Europe there where you have these beautiful fortified wines, you'd be more used to this. But you have a sip of it, and it's a dessert wine, sweet, dense, again, jammy. So what the whiskey picks up is those jammy, those bold notes, and it rounds out the whiskey. And if you create a good marriage, if one is great and the other is great, you can get something that's sublime. Now, just like a marriage, though, if you choose poorly, it doesn't work out so well.
Things aren't going to go very well.
And that's where we're kind of going into here, into the private whiskey program, because it's all about choosing good marriages.
It's the custom whiskey program, if you will, right?
It's the custom whiskey program, the bespoke whiskey program, but it's something that is attainable because we do whiskey in all different sizes, in all different size barrels. It's something where someone doesn't have to buy a huge barrel where they have 350 bottles, unless they have a lot of friends. It's hard to get rid of that much whiskey. Exactly.
Okay, so this is an opportunity to, you know, choose right from the beginning, right? Choose, you know, which cask you want, what size you want, and really go from there.
Everything. And when we started this program, we said, there are some real unknowns in whiskey making when it comes to buying a private cask, which is the traditional way. You go to a distillery, they give you what's called white dog. You would know it as moonshine, so straight off the still, and that would just go into a barrel, and they would say, oh, here's your barrel, come back in 10 years or whenever, and we'll see if it's okay.
Just a long process.
Long process. You might even not still be alive when it comes to pick up there. Hopefully someone remembered that you've got a barrel there. The problems with that are, one, how long it takes. Two, you know, a lot of whiskey, if it's not cared for properly, can start to go sideways a little bit. And so when we developed this program, we wanted something where the base whiskey, the rye, the bourbon, or the single malt was 100% to the level where we would be sending it to these World Spirits Awards. And so people come in, they sit down with us, they try those whiskeys. So the Okanagan Spirits rye, the bourbon, or the single malt.
And they decide
which one's for them. Oh, that's what I want. But then they also get to decide. They might say, oh, well, I met my partner in, as we were just talking about, Portugal, and there's this beautiful port from there. Are you able to double wood finish it in those port casks there? And we'll say, for sure we can do that. They might have been to Jamaica and have a rum finish. So it will go from our barrel for 5 years where it's ready to be bottled, and then it will go into these beautiful other barrels. So it's a one-of-a-kind whiskey that's only for them. And on top of it, they get to choose their own private label. Like
I know, I love that, right? Because then it's really, you know, from the outside, it is your private whiskey, right?
Exactly. I'm gonna start you off with one that's a fun one.
Whose is this?
This one's a private label whiskey we did for the Whiskey Hunter. So you might know a small Canadian band called the Trews. So Chris Gormley is the drummer for the Trews, and he's also known as the Whiskey Hunter. So he does whiskey reviews. So we came up with a double wood whiskey that is a one-of-a-kind whiskey, a chocolate malted bourbon that is finished in LVR 1927 sherry casks. And it came out just this last year, of course, sold out pretty much instantly. It was one that was a private label that we sold through the distillery, so it was a collab project for them.
It's interesting. It smells completely different to the Fintry, right?
And yet a port and a sherry are quite similar. They're both dessert sort of finishing wines. But this one's got these almost more raisiny characteristics. So these beautiful, almost like a cinnamon raisin at the end there, and you get this decadence, and you still get the plumminess on it, but it's also a bourbon instead of a single malt, which will change things a little bit.
It's so funny how just that one little change can make it taste completely different.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm going to have you try something else here. Because this is going a totally different direction.
Don't I?
Very difficult here. So this guy right here, so this is a whiskey that we did, and we did it for West Coast Fishing Club. So up in Langara Island, so we fly up there every year and we do a whiskey school for a group of 50 that are up there. But we make private whiskeys for them because, of course, they're Supernatural BC and they want to present Supernatural BC to the world. This one is one where we took a bourbon, so one of our bourbons. Some of our bourbon barrels, we also take Quebec syrup. So we'll take and we'll put it into the barrels.
Canadian of you.
So we do. We get our friends in Quebec to send syrup. We barrel age the syrup in our bourbon barrels, newly emptied. So it sucks some of the bourbon out of it. But now you've got this barrel that's coated in syrup when we empty it. So we pop the end off. We caramelize. We torch the inside very slowly to caramelize the syrup back into there. And then, so this beautiful maple syrup, and then we put the bourbon back into that barrel. And you'll get the hint more on the finish of this maple finish that comes through. It's going to be a little bit sweeter.
It's right at the end.
But we've burnt most of the sugars off, so it's not super sweet, but it is Canadiana in a glass there.
Wow. That is so good. This is incredible, Tyler. And I know that, just sort of to recap, I know that you and your family were the first distillery, right? And it's so amazing where you've been able to get to now and be able to just be on sort of an international scale as well.
Yeah, and you know what, the other really fun part about it, and you can probably get by how excited I get about talking about whiskey, is the journey. The real fun part of the journey is bringing everyone else along, and that's where the private barrel program's fun, because everybody gets to be that custom whiskey
and you're
maker.
Helping them do that,
and you
right?
guide them through, and at the end of it, that whiskey's not a white labeled whiskey.
Right.
It is 100% unique. We couldn't reproduce it if we wanted to. It would, even if you tried to do it the next year, it'd be off a different year from 5 or 6 years ago's growing their harvest from that. So it's very unique program. And so people, when they're giving that bottle away as a Christmas gift or they have it at their cabin, they know that they were their heart and soul.
I was just going to say, it comes from the heart. That's a real gift, right?
Exactly. And it's not just buying a Jack Daniel's bottle or something else
quickly
that they're
running
giving
to the liquor store as fast as you can.
Exactly.
Tyler, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Congratulations, of course, on all of the awards and where Okanagan Spirits has come. It's always a pleasure to have you in. Visit us more often for sure, but you guys can visit, of course, Tyler and his family as well. More information on the screen, and we are right back, everybody.